Hey there, CINEMASTER fans. Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The movie island of Moreau. After a plane crashed in the Pacific Ocean, Eduardo and two other men managed to survive and drifted at sea on a lifeboat. On the seventh day, Tom and Sam started fighting like beasts over the last remaining water bottle. Eduardo, determined to stop the fight, grabbed a flare gun and threatened them, but ended up becoming their new target. As Tom attacked Eduardo, Sam grabbed a knife to attack him too, but got injured, and both of them fell into the water. At that moment, the smell of their blood attracted a shark swimming nearby. Sam was bitten badly, and as he saw his rival being dragged down into the depths, he resurfaced and attacked Eduardo to take the boat for himself. But Eduardo managed to save himself, using an oar to hit Sam on the head, leaving large bloodstains in the water. A few days later, Eduardo was found by a large ship's crew, who rescued him while he was still alive. Despite severe dehydration, he was still conscious. A man named Lucius promised to pay the ship's captain to take them to the continent, but before that, the veterinarian said he would stop at an island, claiming it was paradise on Earth. The next morning, Eduardo felt much better and discovered their ship had docked at an island called Moreau. According to Lucius, the captain refused to take them to the continent, so Eduardo would have to go with him to the island. After Lucius unloaded countless cages full of animals he brought to the island, he drove his car into the jungle and started distributing the animals into large pens built in the middle of nowhere. When Eduardo saw all the rabbits, he said he had a rabbit as a child and loved it very much. At that moment, the vet killed one of the rabbits, saying he would serve it for dinner. Then he drove to a small village, and Eduardo discovered that many people lived on the island. After entering one of the houses, Lucius told his friend to wait there because he had some work to finish. While Eduardo was carefully examining every detail of the house's decor, he discovered the man living there was Dr. Moreau, who had won many awards for his genetic manipulation research. Suddenly, Eduardo noticed a woman peeking from the balcony and decided to get closer to watch her. When Asa noticed Eduardo's presence, she was startled but quickly realized he wasn't a threat. After introducing herself, Asa revealed she was Dr. Moreau's daughter and had lived on the island since childhood. At that moment, Lucius appeared, and the woman left. Lucius then took Eduardo to his room and revealed that Dr. Moreau, whom everyone thought was dead, had moved his life to the island after animal rights activists forced him to leave America. After Lucius left the room, he locked the door, saying it was for Eduardo's safety. Despite being told it was for his own good, the visitor decided to escape and used an iron rod to unlock the door. Trying to find out what was hidden on the island, Eduardo sneaked quietly to a storeroom and discovered it was a terrifying laboratory. Next to dozens of animal species locked inside, there was also a group of scientists creating a hybrid human-like creature. Just like its mother, the newborn was a mix between human and animal. Realizing these were Dr. Moreau's experiments, Eduardo was when his presence was discovered, he immediately ran from the lab. On his way, he encountered two more hybrids. Terrified, he ran into the jungle to hide, but Asa found him and promised to help him escape the island, on the condition that he promised not to harm her father. After a few minutes of running in the jungle, they reached the shore, but soon after, the hunters appeared, forcing them to run again. When they reached a waterfall, they found a thick-furred hybrid resembling a big cat but still retaining human features. Sensing the human's presence, the creature ran into the jungle, and the two took the chance to escape as well. On their way, they met Simon, who convinced the creature that Eduardo was a friend. Since that was the case, the creature decided to help them find the lawgiver. As Eduardo could no longer trust anyone else on the island, he had no choice but to follow them. After a while, the three arrived at a village full of hybrid creatures. Being one of the oldest in his species, everyone heard the sound of horns and left their shelters to properly welcome the doctor. When Dr. Moreau arrived, the hybrids had no choice but to hand over the intruder. Lucius pointed a gun at Eduardo's head, but instead ends being ordered to shoot. The vet was forced to hand the gun to Eduardo, who used it to keep the surrounding monsters at bay. When the creatures saw him threatening their doctor, they rebelled and threatened to attack Eduardo. At that moment, the doctor pressed a button, and all the animals fell to the ground writhing in pain. When Eduardo realized Moreau was the cause of the creature's suffering, even though they tried to defend him, he ordered him to stop and understood that this man was much worse than he could have imagined. Although Moreau was the one experimenting on these strange creatures, he felt no emotion towards them and considered them less than human. When they returned home, Moreau introduced Eduardo to the rest of his children, and Eduardo discovered the doctor had adopted some of his creatures as family members. In an attempt to explain his research, Moreau revealed that the creatures Eduardo had seen were all animals whose genes had been merged with human genes, and tried to convince him that the experiments he had been conducting for 17 years were legitimate. At night, Eduardo returned to the main house for dinner and discovered these creatures were the result of Dr. Moreau's attempt to improve the human species by adding destructive traits, aiming to achieve the perfection of the species so humans could become like divine beings in their purity and harmony. According to the doctor, after all these failed experiments, he was closer than ever to finding a formula to create perfect, flawless humans. At that moment, Zizilo served dinner, and when Moreau saw a rabbit on the tray, he was very upset because there was a law prohibiting anyone from eating meat on the island. When Isa heard this, she revealed she was running away with Eduardo, as she had seen rabbit corpses in the jungle and all evidence pointed to someone named Lomai being responsible for the attack. Moreau was furious at this news and said there would be a trial the next day and ordered everyone back to their rooms. That night, Eduardo, plagued by nightmares, ran to the dock hoping to escape by boat, but when he got there, he was surrounded by rats with human features and had to run away to avoid being attacked by these creatures. The next morning during the trial, Lomai was convicted of breaking the law forbidding the killing of other animals, so he revolted in anger and ran toward the doctor. He was about to kill him when Moreau pressed a button that activated a chip implanted in Lomai's brain, and the creature fell to the ground. When the doctor approached him, he said he would forgive him for his crime, but Zizilo acted very quickly and shot Lomai in the head, claiming he was helping protect the law and following his father's orders. Zizilo took Lomai's body to the incinerator. At that time, Eduardo went to the radio cabin to try to call for help, but he couldn't communicate with the outside world. After the cat-like creature's body was destroyed, a man named Kirill went to offer condolences to his old friend and found the chip that had been implanted inside him. After removing his own chip as well, Kirill began to closely monitor Lucius and everyone working with Dr. Moreau, as he had lost all trust in them. When the veterinary doctor discovered that the monkey had removed its chip, he ran to get his gun and tried to shoot him, but he couldn't hit him. In an attempt to prevent the rebel from escaping, Lucius ordered Zizilo to gather a group of hunters to capture him. Kirill was chased to the shore, where he got a chance to reveal his nighttime discovery. Lucius appeared in the radio cabin and discovered that Eduardo had convinced someone named Myelin to fix the communication device, so he could call for help. When Kirill had the chance to explain his discovery to the others, he convinced them to confront Dr. Moreau and ask him what was really going on. Even though they called the doctor their father, these creatures never understood why they were different from him. Moreau tried to evade the subject. His goal was to buy time so that Dai would give him his remote control to stop these monsters. He used it on one of the cat-like creatures, but in the end, he was attacked, and his shoulder was bitten. When the doctor fell to the ground, the creatures gathered to kill him once and for all, and they ate their doctor. When Eduardo saw the destruction of Dr. Moreau's body, he pulled out his gun and started shooting at the creatures, who decided to flee to avoid being killed. At that moment, Isa appeared, and Eduardo prevented her from approaching her father's body so she wouldn't be traumatized. With the help and support of the law and her siblings, Isa held a proper funeral for her father, and everyone wondered how they would continue their lives now that their doctor was gone. In an attempt to reassure them and guide them, Eduardo approached to comfort the girl and noticed her teeth turning into fangs. The girl revealed that she was undergoing a rapid transformation. According to her, there was a serum that could stop this transformation. So Eduardo decided to go after Lucius to ask for help, but he quickly realized that the veterinary doctor had no intention of cooperating. Instead of saying where the serum was, Lucius said he had destroyed it and fell into despair. At that time, Kirill and his men were planning to set fire to the pier to prevent anyone from entering or leaving the island. Suddenly, Zazilo appeared, and the hyena made Kirill realize he was armed and trying to stop him. Kirill used Dr. Moreau's device to cause him pain, but was priors when he discovered that Zazilo intended to join the revolution, promising to help the gang that killed his father get more ammunition. Zazilo asked them to remove the chip from his body. At that moment, Kirill ordered his men to hold Zazilo, who used his teeth to open his rib and remove the chip. The beast accepted Zazilo as a new member of his team and shared his plan to take control of the island and all its inhabitants. Afterwards, Kirill set fire to the pier and blew up all the communication towers so no one could contact the outside world and report what was happening. Now, with Dr. Moreau no longer in power, Lucius saw an opportunity to establish his own kingdom, sitting in Dr. Moreau's chair. The veterinary doctor began giving gifts to the creatures to win their affection and trust. At that moment, Eduardo was in the lab and found a blood tube labeled Isma. When he searched the fridge, he found the serum Isa had used to slow her transformation and discovered that it was made from his own blood. After these discoveries, Eduardo became more curious to know what else Moreau had done with his DNA and found countless photos indicating he had been found dead. After gaining the trust of his followers, Lucius gathered as many creatures as possible around him to tell them a story and celebrate. but the event was interrupted by Zazilo's arrival. When he saw the canine hybrid, Lucius got up to hug him and thanked Zazilo for his loyalty over the years. Although Zazilo was one of Dr. Moreau's favorite creatures, he was never loyal to his father because he disagreed with his philosophy of not killing any animal. Therefore, when Lucius came up with the idea of rebellion, Zazilo didn't hesitate to join him and accept him as his new master. But now, after Dr. Moreau was gone and his chip removed, Zazilo also rebelled against the veterinary doctor and shot him in the chest. After killing him, the creature gave the gun to Kirill, who fired many shots at Lucius's body just for fun. Afterwards, Isa arrived at the lab and hugged Eduardo. At that moment, the man remembered Dr. Moreau's words, who had confirmed he was about to complete his research goal. Only then did Eduardo realize that this girl was Dr. Moreau's latest creation, and he was very angry at being deceived. His last memory was surviving a plane crash and Lucius making him believe he had saved him. But in reality, the man had been deliberately captured to take his DNA and used. After Moreau was killed, Lucius destroyed all the serum, so nothing could stop the girl from transforming. When Isa learned of the rebellion and discovered what was coming, she rushed to free the animals imprisoned in the lab and ordered them to escape. At that time, the hyena broke into Moreau's office and entertained himself by using a weapon to destroy everything around him. Eduardo and Isa, terrified and not knowing where to go, ran to the lawgiver's hideout. When they arrived, they found Lucius's lifeless body. As the two mourned the loss of the veterinary doctor, Zazilo appeared and ordered the creatures under his command to capture Eduardo and Isa. In an attempt to defend him, she used her claws to attack her enemies and tried to keep them away from the human. Realizing she couldn't defeat all these creatures, Isa attacked Zazilo, but the animals gathered to protect their master, and the girl was forced to flee. During her escape, she was eventually caught by her brother, who tied a rope around her neck and pushed her to the ground. When Eduardo saw his companion being attacked, all hope left him, and he was overcome by hatred, which drove him to seek revenge on these animals. Just like the lawgiver, Eduardo was treated as an enemy, and Kirill confirmed he would use them as an example, so everyone would know what happens to those who do not accept the new government. Even though the lawgiver had animal DNA like the others, he was very loyal to Moreau, and his sense of justice didn't allow him to support the revolution. Even Kirill knew that this could cost him his life as soon as he finished all the tasks assigned to him by the hyena, and betrayed him, killing him with several blows, because Kirill never forgave him for killing. In an attempt to convince the others to follow his orders from now on, Kirill tried to persuade and urge the law to declare him the new leader, but the old man refused to do so. When he realized he couldn't change his mind, the hyena went to talk to Eduardo and used Moreau's remote to cause pain to everyone in the place except for Milan, who thanks to his kind and peaceful nature, never had a control chip implanted in him. When Kirill's followers started shooting at the other creatures, Eduardo decided to play along to prevent more souls from being lost, so he claimed that the hyena was a king and should be revered. The problem was that, just like Kirill, all the men owed their allegiance to Moreau's corpse, so it was impossible to decide who would be the next leader. When Kirill heard this, he stood up and started shooting at all his partners, eliminating every ally who supported his rebellion. During the shootouts, the hyena was also wounded, and Milan used a flaming torch to destroy the place where the rebels were hiding. Even after the explosion, Kirill survived, and even though he was seriously injured, this madman insisted on killing Eduardo, even if it was the last thing he did in his life. But when he saw the hyena walking towards him, the man grabbed a gun and threatened to shoot if the creature took another step. At that moment, Kirill decided to accept defeat and tried to escape, but the other animals, who had acted as captives, ambushed and attacked him. Knowing he was in a position of weakness, Kirill tried to dodge the blows and look for an escape route, but Eduardo grabbed his gun and blocked his way. With nowhere to go, he decided to walk toward the fire, and his body slowly burned in the flame. After helping the island's inhabitants get rid of Kirill's oppression, Eduardo started to build a wooden raft to leave. Now that their master was gone, the animals needed someone to rule them, and Sayer of the Law begged Eduardo to stay with them. But the man promised he would return with a team of scientists to try to help them. However, Sayer of the Law insisted that his people would never again be test subjects for any experiment. Now that Dr. Moreau was dead, the animals could follow their true nature and live by their instinct. Based on that, Eduardo left, promising he would never return and would never reveal the island's location. Although he kept his promise to the Sayer, the man couldn't keep the secret of the hybrid's existence and published a book telling everything he experienced during his time there. And that's the end of the movie. See you in a new summary.